how did you get where you are today? And I started working full time on the dock, progressed up into leadership roles, and it was interesting because I continued to bowl and
Yeah.
had the dream of becoming a professional bowler. But once I had a few friends who went out there on the tour, and it's uh, it's a huge grind, and it's really a challenge to stay out there, and it's not a great life when you're out on the road. Uh, and so about 15 years later, I kind of look back and it was like, I don't think I picked the career. It kind of picked me. It was just by chance. It had benefits, and got into it and really started working with people and really enjoyed once I got into leadership. Really
Hmm.
enjoyed working with people, whether it was clients or employees. And so I always say, I never picked the career. It kind of picked me.
Cool. That's very interesting. So first thing first, I want to know more about bowling. So, do you still bowl?
Um, I actually, and it's funny, Lisa's constantly asking me, when am I going to go out there and bowl with her? She was a bowler for years. And,
Oh,
I
great.
haven't bowled in probably about 5 years, but every few years I'll pick it back up, and I really do enjoy it when I get the chance to go out and bowl. But I haven't bowled competitively in probably about 7, 8 years.
Wow. So we're gonna have to take you bowling soon and see your
Absolutely,
skills.
absolutely.
Great. Yeah, can't wait to see that.
It's a lot of
Um, yeah. Do your kids bowl as well?
No, unfortunately, I tried to get them into bowling, and they didn't have the same interest. It was a way for my father and I to connect. He was a bowler. He put himself through college of bowling, and
Oh, okay.
so and I was fortunate enough to have a professional bowler who took me under his wing when I was working at the bowling alley and kind of showed me the ropes and taught me, and so was able to get very competitive very quickly. But over the years, raising a family, it kind of impacted my time on the lanes.
It gets to you, huh?
Exactly, exactly.
Um, okay, shifting a bit, I want to know about your career at the dock side, right? Like at the dock.
Mhm.
What was your first role? What was your job like? And yeah, tell us more how you got started.
And it's interesting. And so early in my career, I worked at an IBM location in the research division, and it's very interesting when I think about kind of bear tracks and where we are today. It's very, very similar, but old school with the three-part shipping forms and carbon paper and counting every package and manual logs. And so
Uh-huh.
it was very interesting, but it was primarily moving a lot of stuff around and lots of people in the equation, moving those things around and manual logs and signatures and all of the same chain of custody, but
On
fully
paper.
manual. I
Oh,
call
wow.
it.
So, in the last episode, Tom talked about that sometimes there are spills on these manual logs and coffee gets spilled. Did you have any such instance
Oh
happens?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
you get the box of the old manifests that get water damage and what have you, and then lost forever.
Right. Oh, great. So, where did you go from the dock?
So it was interesting. So I did dock work, I did exports, and that's really how I got into leadership, doing exports for the research division. One of the most interesting pieces of that was I worked closely with the folks who created the very first multifunction device, and it was for the Vatican Library. And so they created, it was about the size of a room. And you think about a multifunction device now, it sits on your desktop and you're able to scan and digitize things. This was a huge, basically probably 20 feet long system that
Hmm.
would take all of the old documents and books from the Vatican Library, and they digitized the entire Vatican Library with two of these devices. But they're sending parts of it back and forth from the U.S. to Vatican City, and working closely with the research division to get all of those items, because every time they'd come up with a new uh, enhancement within the platform, it was all research equipment, and so it hadn't been classified for export purposes and so on. And so working closely with them and with the IBM export controls group to identify, how do you classify the items, how do you get the right paperwork, how do you get it through customs and make sure it gets there. And they managed, I can't remember how many years, but it took them about 5 years to digitize the entire Vatican library.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That sounds both interesting and taxing.
It was really,
Yeah.
really cool. It was probably the first time in my career that I had worked in something that interesting.
Yeah.
And it really
Very
got
cool.
me the love for technology as well.
So you guys did have technology by then? Like, did you, obviously you were digitizing using a technology, but was it just a scanner where you were scanning and maintaining the logs manually, or did you have a software to do that?
Yeah, they had their own custom code that they had built, and it was really converting that image right into.
Hmm.
It was long before Adobe with PDFs and things like that,
Right.
but IBM created the technology to then uh, transfer the image into basically similar to a PDF form.
Cool. Well, that sounds really, really interesting. So you did really start at 5, huh?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still remember the old fax machines with the vellum paper and analog lines, and the old dial-up where you hear beep, beep.
Yeah, good old days.
Exactly, exactly.
So take us from where did you go after that?
And so I stayed in exports for quite some time, and then I got into leadership. And as I got into leadership, I went through a number of different development programs to develop leadership skills. And I was fortunate enough to have some really good mentors who kind of showed me the right way to get things done, and how do you kind of adjust your approach to continue to evolve, and how do you connect with people. And that's what I really started to enjoy was working with people, whether it was in operations or with the client side, but it was really engaging with people, and how do you kind of um, accomplish things together.
Right. So, do you want to tell us some of your mentors that have really impacted you or really helped you in your career, and how did they help?
Sure, sure. And so my first mentor, his name was John Scalpelhorn. I actually worked with him in research. And I was one of those thick-headed kids who I knew exactly the right way to do everything. And so it
Uh-huh.
was, this is how we do shipping. I don't take care of receiving. And he really, it was, you can be right all day. You're the fastest worker. You're the most accurate. You can crank out the work, but the guys over in the receiving department aren't getting anything done. And he really taught me about, by stepping through the door instead of banging your head against the wall next to the door, wait until you get through to the other side, and then you can fix it when you get there. And so he really kind of taught me about teamwork and leadership as well. And that really kind of got me started, and got me interested, because once I got through the door, I realized, okay, well, there's other factors involved. And how do you build teamwork, right? How do you build a
Hmm.
team? How do you get people to collaborate together and all work towards that common goal? And
Right.
it was probably one of the most invaluable experiences or lessons that I learned throughout my career, because it really guided me throughout my entire career.
That's great. And from there,
And so from there, I kind of moved into more senior leadership roles, and got exposed to a number of different services. And it was always kind of, you leap and then figure it out. And typically you leap, you fall down, you stand back up, dust yourself off, right? Apply the lessons learned and continue to move forward. And it was interesting because it was always a matter of feeling that you were a level or two above where you should be. And
hmm,
it was always, how do I move faster? How do I move, smarter, and, work smarter, not harder? Because at each
right,
level, you have to be able to trust your team, right? Build your team out, get them to support you as you continue to move forward,
right,
but kind of apply those lessons learned. And it's always been that kind of, taking that leap of faith and then figuring it out when you get there. And the more times you do that, the easier it became to kind of take that leap of faith.
right. That's beautiful. And I want to take a moment to just think about it, right? That I think that what you're saying is that it's continuous learning, right? That you continuously learn as a leader. You never really know everything, but you figure it out, right? And you basically trust yourself, you take the risks, you are uncomfortable in a lot of situations, but you move forward,
Yeah.
that you'll figure it out,
It's
right?
almost
And
getting comfortable with discomfort, right?
right, yeah.
And even for
And
yourself, I mean, when you moved into your CEO role, that had to
mhm.
be a huge leap of faith, right?
Yes, definitely. And I think that's always been my core as well, right? That move first and figure it out later,
Right.
right? Sometimes I do get myself into a lot of trouble because of that, but I always figure it out and land on your feet, and you always move forward, right? So I think that's definitely works well between both of us. That's kind of where our attitude is, right? That we'll always figure it out. The worst the worst situation is you fail and you learn a lot from it, right? But you
Exactly.
still land on your feet and you move forward with the greater force, and you always get to where you are going and further by just keep moving along.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Learning is good trouble, right? You,
Yes, absolutely. And it's boring without learning, right? Whether you are learning to do something new, or you're learning people, or you're learning how to manage a team, right? It's for your own growth and also interest, right? You have to keep learning, you have to keep evolving
yeah.
to, yeah.
And instilling that in others too. And it's funny, uh, the second big mentor that I had, one of the things he always taught me was don't allow yourself to become irreplaceable. And it was the same kind of concept. It was, if you are irreplaceable, then if no one can replace you, how are you ever going to get promoted? And it was interesting as I moved up through leadership, I actually had a sign above my desk when I had an office that said
Mhm.
that it was, if you can't be replaced, you can never be promoted.
That is amazing. And thanks for bringing that up, right? That is such an important lesson in a leader's life. And it's really hard to work through, right?
Right.
Because when you're good at your job and you do a lot better, you kind of become the sole source, or you kind of have that position that you hold, and you try to control it, right? Letting go of that control not only leads to a greater team, because everybody else around you, right, is moving with the same pace and you're bringing everybody's up, but you're also investing in your growth, because the path forward needs will only happen when somebody can move on to this stone, right? It's always a path, and your position needs to be felt.
Exactly. Yeah. And the key message to it was always, people talk about job security, right? And in
Right,
today's day and age, it's always, even more so now, right? Everyone wants to
right,
have job security. Everyone feels a little uneasy. And, by always owning your role and never allowing anyone else to learn and you become irreplaceable, the job security is you're secure in the fact that you'll never be able to move anywhere else.
right.
And that's the challenge, because if you really want to progress in your career, you have to be open to doing that, right? You have to be open to taking on new things, learning new things, jumping out of your comfort zone, and
Hmm.
and it's how you grow, but it's also how you progress in your career.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I agree, totally agree with that. And also we see the effects of that, right? That we have a beautiful team and we all work together. We like each other a lot. It's never the point, oh, I have to go to work, oh, I have to talk to this, right?
Right.
I think that kind of like creates that environment where everybody is nobody is like hiding knowledge, or uh, being the single source of information. It's all distributed, right? And that helps the whole team really feel empowered,
Mhm.
and that makes you free to learn more, to take risks, and move further.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
And it's all about having that comfort zone too, right? It's know, building a comfort zone and a safe environment for folks to be able to kind of experiment, learn, and it's not the end of the world if they fail.
yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's so important, right? And that we keep forgetting that as we grow older, right? And I hear myself telling my daughters so often that you need to fail,
Yeah.
because that's when you're going to learn the most, right? And if you're scared of failure, it's so hard, because then you know the things you know, and you don't want to take risks, right?
Yep.
But as we grow older, we forget that, and we try to keep doing the things that we know, and it takes a lot of intention, right, to actually be able to say that it's okay if I'm going to fail,
Yeah. And
right?
I would say self-awareness as well, right? It's
Yes.
understanding your strengths, understanding your weaknesses, but not being afraid of your weaknesses. It's how do I continue to build on them, right?
Right.
Or improve them. But it's the willingness to step out of your comfort zone. Right?
Hmm.
You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes. So is that the line on behind your desk now? You got
E-
to be comfortable being
Exactly.
uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, since I've been working with you, it's completely different, but very similar. And it reminds me back to earlier in my career, taking those leaps of faith of, you know what, you just have to dive in and figure things out.
Definitely. And I think I can drive people crazy or just move along because of that, right? That I totally am a person who will throw myself into any situation and
Right.
then figure it out along the way, right? And
Exactly.
just move along. Yes.
Exactly. It's like the fireman, right? You run into the
Yes.
burning building, you just got to put out the fire, but you're not worried about what's going to happen. You're already in there,
Right.
right?
Exactly. The only way to is to either learn and move forward or just learn and
Yeah.
then go back in again.
Exactly. Exactly.
So we were talking about your journey as a leader, right? And then, um, so you and I met at a customer occasion where I was really impressed by the way you were navigating the customer, even the people in the mail room, and we were there as a vendors. You were navigating with us, and there were a couple of different other parties involved, right? So there were three, four parties involved. They all had different questions. They all had different agendas, but you somehow became the person who was navigating between all these different parties flawlessly. And you were talking technical things with the technical team. You were talk at the ground people. You were talking about their operations when it came to the customer. You were telling them the analytics they needed to know, and also we're managing your whole team there, right? So I think that really stood with me for a long period of time, and that since then I've always been wanted to work with you, and I'm grateful to be here. But I would like to understand more that there's a lot of emotional intelligence
Mhm.
that comes with interacting with so many different parties, right? And still staying calm and grounded with how you need to navigate, but also making everybody else comfortable around you.
Yeah, and it's a critical thing that I think it's a learned skill, but it comes through experience, and it's understanding and seeing things from other people's eyes, right? It's
Mhm.
how do they feel? What's motivating them? What are their blockers or contention points? But understanding it and seeing it from their perspective and adjusting your approach and your perspective towards that common ground, right? You find the common ground, you work together toward it, but I always call it the WIFM. It's the what's in it for me, right? And you have to
Mhm.
be able to present in a way that they understand, that you're in it together, right? And it's being
Mhm.
authentic, it's understanding what their needs are. But part of that is it's really listening, it's actively listening, right? And understanding what people need or what their real goals are so that you can come up with a solution that meets both ends, right? And you got to be able to kind of craft your response or craft your approach around your audience.
Mhm.
And there's no one size fits all, right? And so it's understanding people and adjusting your approach. But I think the biggest piece to that is actively listening and understanding, right? It's, in a conversation, a lot of times you find people, especially during a business meeting, they pause to reload, right? And they're not listening to what the other side is saying,
Yes.
and they're not asking, second and third level questions to really qualify their understanding of, well, if I heard you right, this is what I understand, right?
Mhm.
Asking qualifying questions. And if you're not asking a qualifying question, how do you really know that you understand what they want or what their needs are,
Mhm.
or how to approach a situation.
Yes. That's a very good point, and that brought a lot of thoughts in my mind. A book that I was reading recently did talk about that. One of the qualities of a great leader is to be able to listen and talk last, right? That you need to create a space in which you show up with the purpose to listen and improve, rather than proving a point,
Right.
right? That if you are in a meeting and you show up and you start talking as a leader, this is what we need to do, this is what we need to do, and you don't create a space for others to listen to others, you basically not being a good leader,
Right.
right? People would listen to you and they won't say a thing, but you have a team who have a purpose, and they all have things to contribute.
Right.
So your goal is to listen to all of them and ask qualifying questions to really deeply understand where they're coming from and what they're saying, and in the end, summarize it to basically understand, right?
Right. And it's funny. One of the favorite sayings that you use quite often is one of your favorite sayings that I hear you say is you make them the hero of their own story, and
Mhm.
and that's really what it is, though. It's you got to listen to them, you got to help them craft their story, right? But understand what their story is so that you can help kind of create that ending together.
Right. Yes, and thanks for reminding me that. I do love that saying. And truly, that is what it is, right? Whether you're working with customers or you're working with partners, or you're working with the teams, right? They look at it is such a responsibility, right? They look at you with so much of admiration, and if you use it to just talk and not empower them, it's actually your loss, right? That
Absolutely. It's funny. My mom used to always tell me you have two ears and one mouth for a reason.
yes,
Listen twice, talk once.
yes. And such a hard skill, right? We
It is.
are all motivated to talk, talk, and talk, and listen less. And in everywhere, right? In all walk of life, it's hard to show up with intention to listen and understand. But something we have to continuously practice and evolve.
Yeah. And it's funny because the more excited you get about something, the harder it is to
Hmm.
listen and not speak, right?
Right.
And it's funny because you work with a client and you hear something that they say that really kind of strikes a chord, and it's, hey, wait, I can't wait to tell you about that because I'm so glad you asked, right?
Right.
But having the patience to let them finish their full thought, right,
Hmm.
before you speak, and then really kind of consider all of what they're saying rather than that key kind of nugget that you want to jump on.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think every interaction teaches you more, and just the intention that it's okay, it's always good to and understand listen and understand. But again, I think this is something that we all have to work throughout our careers to just keep mastering
Yeah,
that
you never stop learning, right?
and
It's
never stop learning.
when you stop learning, you're done.
Yes. And then you learn something else, right?
Exactly.
Then you
Exactly.
learn music, you learn art, you do something else, but you still learn, um, and evolve somehow.
And it's that curiosity too, right? You have that innate curiosity to learn and to
Hmm.
absorb, and when you do, you'll always find something new to learn.
Right. Otherwise, you're going to do wrong things, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't mail it in.
You can't. And I was reading this amazing book called Play by Stuart Brown, and it talks about the creativity, that if you have unused creativity, it actually causes a lot of harm. And a lot of people who have depression, or they get into the wrong sides and do things, it's mostly because of that unused creativity
Mhm.
and learning, right? Again, it's the curiosity learning. Either you're doing art in its art form, you're doing music, you're doing art, you're doing paintings, or any form of art, or your work becomes your art,
Uh-huh.
right? And if you don't use that creativity and you're not pushing yourself to be uncomfortable, it's going to show up in your life in different forms.
Right. And I think a lot of that too is the self-awareness too, right? If you're self-aware and you're able to take true stock and inventory of strengths, weaknesses, but then also to that extent, right? How am I doing personally? And
Hmm.
always wanting to, figure out new ways of doing things or uh, new things to keep you busy, right? To
Right,
use that creativity uh, so that you don't get into that kind of that rut or uh, stagnation.
right. Yeah. It's such a leadership is such a great topic to talk about. There are so many things and just human interactions, and definitely shows the passion you have to what you were saying, that you love interacting with people, you love working with people and learning alongside them. So let's talk a bit about the transition from operations to technology. Right? It's a very big change. It's a change, right? We're still in the same industry. It's still different,
Right.
right? And tell me, is it different, and how is it different?
Yeah, and it's funny. I think about it often because it's definitely different, but
Mhm.
similar. Because
Right.
I'm not writing the code, but working with technology and working folks in the technology space, whether it's clients or on our side of the house,
Hmm.
it's a different approach in how you think about things or how you present things. Because
Hmm.
it was always the kind of the customer service aspect of service delivery was slightly different, where it's all about the people and how you make people feel, where with the technology is going to do what it's coded to do, right?
Right.
And same thing with the folks that you work with. When you're working more with on the technology side, it's more kind of matter of fact of exactly how things happen, right? And what do you need
Hmm.
to have things, what does the technology need to do for you, and how do you
Right.
enable it? Where with the people, it's more how do you motivate them to want to do what you need them to do. Right?
Hmm.
The technology is only going to do what you do with it.
Right.
I think that's the
What
big
people will do with it, right? There's always a people part to it, that you
right,
can have the greatest technology if people are not using it,
right.
or it's only as good as the people who use the technology.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that's the most interesting piece where I'd say there's definitely a correlation and a connection is
Hmm.
working with folks on how they interact with the technology.
Hmm.
And again, going back to that kind of leap of faith for a lot of people, I think that struggle with the technology, it's the discomfort or uh, not wanting to be uncomfortable, and it's the fear factor, right? And it's the
Right.
well, if you dive in and you're not afraid to make a mistake, you're not going to break it, right?
Right.
You have to be open to making a mistake and learning. And whether it's technology or anything else you're doing in life,
Hmm.
it's taking that fear away, or at least being open to exploring new things.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I often see that when you interact with our customers, or we are talking about implementation, trainings, or just guiding them on the workflows, right? That you're able to make that instant connection with people because you've been in their shoes, right? You understand what it's like to be on that side and what challenges they have. And then, technology or not, right, the processes remain same, the challenges kind of remain same. And then, but how do you leverage the technology to address those changes, right? Address those issues. How do you make technology your best friend to basically help you, and also help you progress your career, work smarter than harder,
Absolutely.
right? But I've always found that interesting to see that whatever experience you've gained through the years, right? You still keep it to maintain connections with people, to instantly help them what they're doing. And also, like, the fact that this is my job, and like, I'm here from the technology side, I'm only going to talk about that. That doesn't come up at all, right? That you just step in and you're like, okay, what's your problem, what are you trying to do with, you can do this. So I really admire that part of we are partners, whether it's customer or partners, we're all in this together, and we all do well together, right? Whether you use a technology or not, we we can still help you in different ways,
Mhm.
and this is our community,
Right.
right? We do well with if we nurture our roots really well and help each other in however we can.
Absolutely. And it's funny, that's another kind of similarity or correlation is when I think about the technology aspect of it, it's really, when you're talking about people, it's always what does success look like, right? When you're designing from a process, it's what does
Hmm.
success look like for you? And
Right.
understanding that and walking back from that to in the design aspect, okay, well, if that's the ultimate goal, how do we get there? And from the technology side, same idea, right? When we're working with clients and it's, where's the platform going to go?
Hmm.
Understanding what they need, right? But understanding what does success look like for them
Hmm.
helps us with from a design aspect of how do you improve the technology to either fill gaps that they see or pain points that they have, but what does success look like for them from their eyes? And seeing
Right.
it from their eyes helps you really understand how do you design whatever it is that you're going to build.
Right. Totally. And I was thinking about that, the whole community, that the facility management community, it's a small world, right? We all it's a small tight knit industry. We come across those people, same people, several different times, several different places, and it's so nice to see that we so often meet these amazing people, right? That they're driven to do good work. They really care about the work they do. They care about their customer, and they do want to bring operational excellence wherever they are, right? It's such a pleasure to be with those people and just work alongside with those people.
Absolutely. Mhm.
And so I was thinking about technology and the changes that it happens, right? There's a lot to keep up with technology because, with every release, things change and evolve, right? And you have to keep up, you have to understand what those changes are, why are we making, and then keep up with it. And every time we are with the customers, you have to reiterate it, understand it. So I'm curious to hear how's that for you. And it's definitely something that has been different from working in operations.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because I always, as I think I'm learning the technology, figure out how much more I don't know yet, and it's a lot of trial and error,
Same. Yes.
and really kind of understanding, you know, where are we going with the platform, but how do you interact with it, and constantly understanding that no matter how much I think I understand about it, there's so much more that I haven't learned yet, um, and continuing to say, okay, I can work with clients on what their needs are, but
Mhm.
without fully understanding the technology, I can't really meet their needs because I can only take them so far in their journey.
Right. But it's also, that's just such a good point that you can only take them so far without understanding the technology completely. But I think where it helps us as a company is that it's also building that, right? That if we are able to build a technology that you can understand
Mhm.
and able to express, then we're building the right features, right? We're building the right thing. Otherwise, it's if we internally are not able to understand that or comprehend it, or it's difficult to work through, then how hard it will be for the customers to do it, right? Because we
Absolutely.
live through it day in and night. That's what we do. And so it's definitely a good perspective for us to have, right? That if to work through it internally.
Without a doubt, without a doubt,
Yeah.
and I think having the diverse team that we have, and everybody has different areas of expertise, and bringing that
Hmm.
all together, then it's not just me preaching to them, right? It's pulling in our support team, pulling in you, pulling in the various experts within our company, I think really it brings a very well-rounded approach when we're approaching a client. And I think, no matter what level we're talking to, we're able to work with everybody in one way, shape, or form. Uh, but I think having the curiosity to continue to learn the technology, I think really helps. But I think it also helps us understanding from our end what some of those
Mhm.
challenges are for the end users. And I think, to your point, the more friction that we can take out of that, right, the more we can automate it for them, it really makes it an enabler for them rather than a barrier.
Right. Definitely. And I want to say that, it has definitely helped us being a better partners to our channel partners, right? Since you've joined us, because I think being a technology company, we had very little insight into what does it mean to be a good partners, right? What are the challenges these partners navigate in their world, and how challenging are those operations, right? That and where do we need to meet them? What challenges we need to solve, and what operational excellence we can bring in to actually support them in doing what they're doing.
Right.
And we don't have to be in odds between people and technology. They actually go together, and everybody is trying to do the same thing, right? Helping the customer, helping the operations. It just, you have, I think I really welcome and the opportunity to learn more and more about the outsourcing world and how different channel partners navigate that.
Right. Yeah. And I think, ultimately, I think it's really to your earlier point, it's understanding those operations, understanding the pain points, but
Mhm.
how does the technology support and enable what they're trying to accomplish, right?
Right.
And it's not, the technology isn't it's not the focus, it's an enabler, right?
Hmm.
It helps them in their journey, but it needs to be solid, it needs to be reliable to help them, right, for them to be successful. And again, it's an enabler for them to help them, but it's got to be solid and reliable. And that's really the key point. And it's sort of like the customer service aspect. 99 out of 100, right, 99% of the time you get it right. The one time you get it wrong, that's the one time they're going to remember. And so making sure that we have, our testing done, and making sure that
Hmm.
the application is up and running, because it's not the 99 times you get it right, it's the one time you get it wrong that people typically will remember.
That's interesting. And, I want to challenge that. I, I think, I think I want to say that I'm really proud of the support team we've built, right? And primarily you, right? I think we, our support team today is amazing, incredible, right? Like we hear it from the customers, channel partners, and we feel it internally, right? They're amazing people. I think it's also about the willingness to help,
Mhm.
right? There is never going to be that you'll never have a challenge, right? Or things are
Right.
going to go 100% right, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm really quoting a customer that I was interacting this morning, and it's a friend and a customer that I have been working like 15 years, and they've been using us like 20 years. And I asked him like, um, what drives that, right? Do you think that this is a good partner? Like, what about us actually makes it worthwhile year after year? And he said that, every software is going to have challenges, bugs, or sometimes something will go wrong, but you're always a phone call away. And it has never happened that I've tried to reach somebody in your company and they've not responded within an hour, and the issue has not been resolved the same day, or at least I know where we are.
Right.
And he's like, that's what brings me trust. It's not the 0% issues, it's about how quickly you respond to it
Mhm.
and how do you fix it, right? And the fact that, and sometimes the issues are actually from their end, right? Their environment, their issues, but our team never says that, oh, it's the issue on your end, and just we don't
Leave
care,
it at that.
right?
Right.
We are an extension of their team.
Mhm.
It matters to us that the operation works flawlessly and works fine, whether the issue is from them or us. we we partner with them and figure it out, right?
And yeah, and you're there's no such thing as 100%, right? Uh,
Right,
and it's that 1% or whatever that percentage is. It's how do you respond?
right,
And,
absolutely.
and that's key critical because and with some of those stakeholders, they do understand, right? It's not going to be perfection, but
Hmm.
how do you respond to adversity?
Right, absolutely.
And that's really it's because you're in the trenches with them, right? You're
Hmm.
in there as a partner rather than a provider.
Yes. And that's where trust comes in, right? Like trust is actually built in small moments where
Absolutely.
you help someone or you do something really out of just kindness, right? Like because if I have a support issue and I call you and you fix my support issue, yes, you did great and I like working with you, but I really build trust in very small moments of kindness
Mhm.
or anything. Like I would say, okay, I'll stay on a call with you for a little longer, just make sure it works, right?
Right.
It's generally those are the things that add trust marbles to your marble jar.
Yeah. And that's character, right? Character is built on when you fail and how do you deal with adversity
Right.
rather than how do you handle success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Chris, tell me what's your favorite place for to go to vacation?
That's a great question. I love to travel, and so
Mhm.
pretty much anywhere. I like to travel for business. I like to travel for pleasure. Uh, Love to get back to Europe some more, but most recently, most of my travels have been throughout the U.S. and in the Caribbean. I'd say in the winter, I love being in the Caribbean. Love the
Mhm.
beaches, love the warm weather, and getting out of the cold and of the Northeast. But I'd say California is probably one of my favorite places. And it's interesting. Just last week when I was coming back from Seattle, I had a layover in LA and got to stand out on the patio and stand in the Southern California sunshine, which it's amazing how different that is.
So you love sunshine.
I do. I do. Anywhere warm, cold drinks, maybe some sand.
Yeah, on the beach. Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. And how about yourself?
I love beaches as well. Um, so every time I think about it, I want to say a different place, but in my mind, I'm always in India, in Goa, on a beach with Vipul and Sahil, and I
Uh,
think that is my perfect vacation always.
yeah. And I really like getting out and just about anywhere because seeing different cultures, different people, right?
Hmm.
It's always interesting to see when you go anywhere different, right? Or anywhere new and experience either the culture or the cuisine or the people. Uh,
Right.
that I really, really enjoy that.
And I think that brings into the whole circle. We started with talking about of your curiosity, uh, and that you like working with people, and you like taking challenges and learning new things. And I think traveling to different places, right, different cultures is about that as well.
Absolutely. And it's funny and that's a really good correlation because when I think about working with new clients and whether it's a new industry or a new client that I haven't worked
Hmm.
with, that's always one of the most exciting things. It's get in there, see what the culture is like within that new client base, right? Or that
Hmm.
new customer, understanding and seeing from their eyes or their perspective how things operate, right? Because no matter whether it's the same industry, a different industry, or same region or a different region, there's always differences. And
Right.
understanding that, I think, it's really kind of neat and cool to understand what drives people, but then
Hmm.
also how different things can be.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely very interesting to see different cultures, to see how little or how more of everything people have, and they still find happiness in different things,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And how much a cultural shift that is.
Definitely. Definitely. And looking at the workforce, it's the same thing, right?
Hmm.
Years ago, it was, you worked in one job for your entire career. There was probably two generations in the workforce, and now there's 3 to 4 generations in the workforce, and how do they blend together and work together kind of in harmony? And it's the diverse nature of people and
Hmm.
business that it's really it's neat to watch and need to be a part of as well.
You truly are a people person, Chris.
Absolutely.
um, so I think we are coming close to the end. I want to ask if there is one thing that you would like to do for your community in facility management, which you're really passionate about. What would you do?
That's a great question. And I think when we're talking about facilities management and what do you do with or for people,
Hmm.
I think it's really about understanding kind of what that service delivery model is, but it's always about the experience. And I think going back to the beginning of the conversation as well, when we were talking about continuous improvement, right? There's always something to change, there's always something to tweak, and there's
Hmm.
always a new experience to create. And whether it's with technology or with a service, it's always being open to change. I think is the key, because the one constant is change, whether you like it or not, and it's
Hmm.
always going to happen. And so just being open to it and being ready for it, right, and being ready to respond and react, whether it's technology or people, it's really the same thing. You always have to be able to adjust.
Right. Absolutely. I agree that change is the only constant, and that's the only thing that drives us forward. So, and since you've joined us, you've been really passionate about learning management system, right? For the same thing that you wanted to contribute to the facility management community, you wanted to provide more, enable the workforce so that they have a path to go forward. So I want to hear some about that. That I really see your passion come alive in that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, like I was saying earlier, kind of my career found me rather than me finding my career. And
Mhm.
a lot of those mentors that worked with me put me through a lot of different training programs and learning. And it's really it's about helping people along their path, right? So
Mhm.
whether it's an entry level person, helping them in the career progression, uh, or when I'm looking to hire people, it was always how do I find people who know the technology, and having certifications in those areas. If I'm a company that's looking to hire people, or I'm an employee looking for how do I develop my own career or my own skill sets, right? Uh, Learning management has always been a core component of that. And I get very passionate about it because people took interest in helping me along my path. And a lot of that was learning management, whether it was coaching and mentoring or formal training programs. And I was never a good student. And then once I got into my career, it was the curiosity of, wanting to continue to grow and build because I had an interest in what I was doing,
Mhm.
opposed to I needed to learn things out of a book. Right. And so I became passionate about learning because I was passionate about whatever product it was that I was working with.
Mhm.
And back then it was always people. And so if people are the product, learning management is the path to success.
Absolutely. So one last question, Chris. If facility management had a motto, what would that be?
That's a great question. And I'll give kudos to one of the guys I used to work with over at Canon. He had a T-shirt that he had made, and he said, as an area manager, which was basically a regional manager running a number of different client operations, what does an area manager do? And he says, we fix problems that people didn't know they had in ways that they didn't even know were possible.
That is
And
amazing.
facility
Yeah.
manager, that's really what it is. It's always anticipating needs, right? Anticipating challenges or
Mhm.
seeing around corners and fixing problems before they become evident to the end user.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is beautiful. And that does summarize a lot of facility management and what happens in facility management.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I felt like we could have gone for hours and hours. But
Absolutely.
thank you so much. As
Thank you.
always, I really appreciate you. Thanks for being here with me.
Thank you for being here too.